Alright, so here's a problem where the input is always a single line with a single integer on it, but the output is going to be a variable number of lines depending on what number is provided as input. Okay, so to read the input we don't need a loop, but to produce the output we're going to need a loop. So let's go look at how we set this up. So in my main, what I'll often do is I'll use the same name for a variable if possible. If a variable or if a number is given a name in the problem statement, like right here it's n, I'll try to use that same name in my code as well. I don't know about using a lowercase n, but whatever. We'll use capital N there since it's a capital N here. So we're just going to read our input, convert it to an integer. And now we need to set up a loop that loops that number of times and then prints these lines of output. Okay, so let's set up what's called a counted loop in Python, which the most simplest way of doing that is just to use this pattern of for and then some loop variable that you want to use, and then range n will essentially produce a list of the numbers from 0 up to but not including that n right there. Okay, so range 4 would produce the sequence of numbers 0, 1, 2, 3. Alright, so and if all I do right now is print I, let's try running this and see what happens. Oops. Run our time loop. So if I type 5, you can see that this printed 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. Now we do want it to print this abracadabra afterwards as well. So how do we do that? Well, I could try concatenating a string onto the end of it. Let's see how that goes. And we get a type error. So it turns out that with the plus operator, if the thing on the left-hand side is a string, then Python will automatically convert the thing on the right-hand side to a string, but not vice versa. So here we have an integer, and it's complaining it can't add an integer. As soon as it saw that number, it thought this plus is like an arithmetic plus. So a couple of things we could do here. We could try explicitly converting the number to a string using this str function. Okay, let's see if that works. So if I do that, that's good. Okay, so it's producing output. Now notice that it's off by 1. The output's supposed to start at 1, not 0. Okay, so we can either adjust that by adding 1 to the I variable there, and we get the 1 through 5. Another way we could do this is we could control the range here. So I can say, let's make a range, the sequence in the range from 1 instead of some 0. We'll go from 1 to n plus 1, like 1 less than n plus 1, which is n. So this should get us from 1 up through n inclusive. Let's see how that works. I'll try a different number there, so that does 1 through 4. Okay, so these are two different ways of tackling, making sure that the numbers come out okay. The other thing that we could use here is what's called a Python for F string. It's like a formatted string, where what we'll do is put an F and single quotes, okay, around the string. Alright, so we're going to use single quotes instead of double quotes, and immediately preceding the first single quote like this F there. Okay, that means that this is sort of a string, but we have some special features, which is inside the string, if I put anything that has curly brackets around it, then that is treated as a piece of actual live Python code, and whatever that evaluates to gets spliced into the entire string. So this F string here is sort of like a template. It's a template string of what the whole string should look like. We don't need to use the plus and concatenation and converting to strings and all that stuff to get the output we want. And there's other features here also that we can use in terms of formatting, like controlling the number of decimal points and things like that. So it's pretty handy for those purposes. Alright, so this looks like this would be ready to go. And again, an alternate way of setting this up, we could have done I in range 0 through n minus 1, and we could do the plus 1 internally inside the little code snippet in the F string there. Let's make sure also that that works. Put 7, and that seems to work fine. Alright.